Welcome back. We've been considering some of the prayer psalms of David. Yesterday we considered the first 7 verses of Psalm 5, considering the holiness, if you would, of Yahweh and his abhorrence of wickedness, and the privilege that we have of crying out to this holy God, beginning that even in the morning hours. I'd like to read all of Psalm 5 today and consider the second half of it. Psalm 5. To the chief musician with flutes, a psalm of David. Give ear to my words, O Yahweh. Consider my meditation. Give heed to the voice of my cry, my King and my God. For to you I will pray. My voice you shall hear in the morning, O Yahweh. In the morning I will direct it to you, and I will look up. For you are not a God who takes pleasure in wickedness, nor shall evil dwell with you. The boastful shall not stand in your sight. You hate all workers of iniquity. You shall destroy those who speak falsehood. Yahweh abhors the bloodthirsty and deceitful man. But as for me, I will come into your house in the multitude of your mercy. In fear of you, I will worship toward your holy temple. Lead me, O Yahweh, in your righteousness because of my enemies. Make your way straight before my face, for there is no faithfulness in their mouth. Their inward part is destruction. Their throat is an open tomb. They flatter with their tongue. Pronounce them guilty, O God. Let them fall by their own counsels. Cast them out in the multitude of the transgressions, for they have rebelled against you. But let all those rejoice who put their trust in you. Let them ever shout for joy, because you defend them. Let those also who love your name be joyful in you. For you, O Yahweh, will bless the righteous. With favor you will surround him as with a shield. David now calls to God with a specific request, that Yahweh would lead him in his righteousness. This is reminiscent as well of Psalm 23, where David calls for the shepherd to lead him in paths of righteousness for Yahweh's namesake. David here again calls out to Yahweh to lead him according to the righteousness of Yahweh, knowing that our own righteousness falls so short of that of God. But note the rationale and the reasoning that David calls out for this. Because of my enemies. David desires to walk in right paths, knowing that his enemies are watching, and they will tear him apart based upon his activities and his words. Even today, the same holds true. The enemies of Yahweh, the enemies of God, the enemies of Christ, still seek to tear apart and to show hypocrisy, if you would, unrighteousness in those who are the followers of God. It tends to, in their brain, justify their falsehood, to justify their wickedness. And so we need to cry out to God to lead us according to his right paths, in order that we might bring him the glory that he rightly deserves, that we might not be the cause of people bringing false charges against our God, or against his church, if you would, in today's realm. David calls for God then to come in and to pronounce them guilty, verse 10, but to let them fall by their own counsels, casting them out in the multitude of their transgressions. There is a part where we want God's way to prevail, but I'm excited to know that God's way will prevail. It always will. And though I may cry out for the ways of the wicked to falter, yet I want to still remember that God desires all men to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth. And so even though I want the wickedness in ways of the wicked to falter, I still desire those who are entrapped in that wickedness to come to know the truth and to be set free. The best way for that to happen is for me to walk in the right paths of Yahweh, not in the wicked paths of the wicked. David then turns in verse 11 and says, "Let all those rejoice who put their trust in you. Let them ever shout for joy because you defend them." But then note what he says as well. "Let those also who love your name be joyful in you." This whole concept of rejoicing in Yahweh then ties back to the relationship that you have with him, in the tenderness that you have, if you would, to his very name. As people go out and they blaspheme the name of the Lord, does it bother you? Not that we have to go out and fight against them necessarily, but it ought to grieve our hearts when people use the name of our God in vain. Sadly, there are those who say they are proclaimed by the name, and yet then they blaspheme the name. They use the name in vain. May it not be us who are called by his glorious name. Take time today to go before the Lord, seeking his guidance and his direction to lead you in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. And then rejoice. Rejoice in that name and that he has allowed you the privilege of being called by that name. And then, yes, represent that name to the wicked of the world, that maybe they might come to know and to experience the joy of being called by that name too. And have a blessed day.